What if the one thing that you think disqualifies you is actually the very reason that God chose you? Gideon didn't believe in himself. David wasn't invited in the lineup, and yet God chose them. So what if there's a gift inside of you that could change not only your life, but the lives around you? Most Christians underestimate the calling that's been placed on their life because they believe that there is someone worthier and more suited for the job. But God is saying, I called you into this specifically, and it is not by mistake. God created each of us individually with special talents and gifts, a way to serve Him and bring Him glory. And who you are, your personality, and your gifts cannot be replicated. Even if you try to narrow down your personality type with a test and compare your talents to others who are seemingly more talented than you are, there will never be another person who can do things exactly the same way that you were meant to. And yet many of us Christians are not utilizing our gifts that the Lord has given us. You might even be thinking, there's nothing special about me. Maybe you feel too ordinary for God to use you. You've let the world define what God can do through you. But God has given you these gifts and these talents for a good purpose. So what are your gifts and talents? Sometimes the gifts that God gives us are more obvious. Maybe you're good at connecting with people. Maybe you create art, or maybe you're incredibly intelligent. Now, some gifts are not as obvious. You have gifts right now inside of you that you don't even know about because they have been buried so deeply under insecurities and lies, or maybe it's just not been the right season. An example of this is maybe you've been called to preach publicly. And when we hear some of these callings that other people seem to take up so easily, we think that can't be me because fear, doubt, inadequacy takes root. And we believe that God is more willing to use someone where that is in their natural calling. But me, I can't do that. The world has taught us not to act outside of our means. You need to learn your personality type. If you're an introvert, if you're an extrovert, look at what you naturally like to do and what you're naturally good at. And that's how you figure out your calling. That's what's most comfortable. But what if God was calling you to something bigger than yourself? Something that stretches you to a new level, forces you to rely on God, and it brings Him glory. A gifting so buried under insecurities and doubt, but once uncovered, the light and the favor of the Lord shines off of you so brightly. It reshapes not only your life, but the lives around you. Gideon in the Bible did not feel gifted. He felt small and afraid, and yet God called him mighty before he even felt mighty. In the book of Judges, chapter 6, we can see that the Israelites were oppressed for 7 years. And one day, the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon. He called him a mighty man of valor, a hero, and that Gideon would be the one to deliver the Israelites from oppression. And in chapter 6, verse 15 through 16, it says, "But Lord," Gideon replied, "how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I am the least in my entire family." The Lord said to him, "I will be with you, and you will destroy the Midianites as if you were fighting against one man." Gideon questioned God, no doubt feeling afraid and unequipped. This was not in his natural capabilities. So out of everyone, why was God choosing Gideon? But as we follow Gideon throughout the rest of the story, we see how he listens to the Lord's instruction and rescues the Israelites. God is not a respecter of persons. He doesn't care if you're equipped or not because he didn't call the equipped. He equips the called. So when we place ourselves into a box of things that we are and aren't capable of, what we're really doing is refusing to allow the Lord to work in our lives and to equip us to do the work that He has called us to. You are not what the world has called you. You are not what your insecurities have called you. You are who God says you are. And many of you have these big dreams that have been laid on your heart, these big impossible ideas that if you were to tell most people about them, they would look at you and tell you that you are crazy, that those ideas are impossible, that you're not capable of that. And a lot of times these dreams, these ideas, they keep coming back to us. Maybe you've even had these ideas confirmed to you through other people. So a lot of times you'll find that these big daydreams that you are having, especially when it comes to helping other people or a way of spreading the gospel, these big ideas are being reconfirmed to you by the Holy Spirit, bringing them back time and time again. God is prompting you to accept the calling that He has placed on your life, that He's created you for. But usually what ends up happening is Christians end up pushing that idea away because they've been feeding on doubt instead of feeding that dream with faith. And so just as a non-believer can use a gifting for worldly desires, a believer can do the same and in fact choose to not use the gifting at all. And I think we see an epidemic of that in the church, where many Christians have been feeding on doubt on what the world has been telling them, and they've stopped dreaming those big God-sized dreams. They're not using the giftings and the talents that God gave them. Everyone has a great calling on their lives, a gifting that God has placed inside of them. And even if nobody else sees it, even if you don't see it. So what if the gifting that you think you don't have is actually the one that God is preparing to reveal? When we look at the life of David, his own family didn't even recognize his giftings. They wrote him off as merely a shepherd boy. In fact, when he went to fight Goliath, they mocked him and they doubted him. But David kept his trust and faith in the Lord for his strength. In fact, all throughout David's life, we can see that there was a buried gifting to lead. He showcased this in such a humble way, first with leading the sheep, tending to them, but later he would have the responsibility of leading a nation. Even after Samuel anointed David as future leader of the nation, it still took many years after for that to come into fruition. But through that, God was preparing David. So what is that calling that God has placed inside of you? What does the Holy Spirit keep bringing to your remembrance? What are those big dreams and ideas that the Lord has given you? Write them down, because they're not just imaginations. Those are God-given ideas, an invitation from the Lord to partnership with Him. So ask the Lord to prepare you for that calling. Ask Him to bring those gifts out of you. And if that dream feels impossible, that's how you know that it's God-sized. You may still be thinking, well, I'm not capable of this. I don't even have the money for this. I don't have the knowledge. I don't know how I'm going to do this. That's good, because the bigger the dream and the idea, the more that God shines His face upon you, ready to do the work on your behalf. He'll show you the way to go. If you seek His face, He will guide you and help you to make those right decisions. And the more that you are willing to bend to the will of God, He'll continue to draw those giftings out of you, giftings that you didn't even realize that you had. And you will be a greater blessing to those around you. You don't need to be qualified. You only have to say, yes, Lord. I'm going to wrap this up with Matthew chapter 19, verse 26, which says, "But Jesus looked at them and said to them, 'With men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible.'" By stopping and reflecting that maybe this isn't in my own natural capabilities, but God, you keep reminding me of this idea. Let's pick up this dream and let's go after it. Place your trust in the Lord for Him to do the impossible, so that when others look at everything that's been accomplished, God's work is glorified. I hope that this video blessed you. If it did, make sure that you give it a like and share it with a friend if you think that it could bless them. Also, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And with that, I hope you have a good day. God bless. Bye.